You ever hear about a single secret message completely changing the course of a world war? Well, we're going to look at one. It was intercepted in the dead of winter in 1917, and its discovery didn't just expose a secret plan, it backfired so badly that it dragged a reluctant superpower into the biggest war the world had ever seen. This is the story of the code that literally changed history. Okay, so picture this. It's 1917. The Great War is raging across Europe. At the absolute height of the fighting, a top-secret telegram is making its way from Berlin to Washington, D.C., and British intelligence manages to just pluck it right out of the air. They have no idea what it says, but they have a gut feeling. This is a big one. And you know what? Their gut was absolutely right. What they were holding was, and this is no exaggeration, one of the most explosive and game-changing messages in the entire history of warfare. This thing had the power to flip the whole outcome of the war on its head. But, of course, there was a catch. It wasn't written in plain German. It was just a meaningless jumble of numbers. So the two massive questions were, what on earth were the secrets hidden in those numbers? And more importantly, for the British codebreakers staring at it, could they even possibly read it? To really get why this one message was such a potential bombshell, we've got to zoom out and look at the world it was sent into. Because honestly, the world was completely and very bloodily stuck. So at this point, you've got this massive contradiction playing out. Over in Europe, the war had been a miserable, muddy stalemate for 3 long years. But the United States? Officially neutral. In fact, President Woodrow Wilson had just won re-election with the slogan, "He kept us out of war." But, and this is a huge but, America was basically acting as the factory and farm for the Allies, sending a never-ending stream of supplies across the Atlantic. For Germany, cutting off that supply line was the only way they could see a path to victory. So, the German High Command decided to make a massive, all-or-nothing gamble. They announced that, on February 1st, 1917, they were unleashing their U-boats, unrestricted submarine warfare. What did that mean? It meant their submarines would sink any ship they found in the waters around Britain. Didn't matter if it was neutral, American, if it floated, it was a target. Now, they weren't stupid. They knew this move would almost certainly drag the United States into the war. It sounds incredibly reckless, but it was all based on a cold, hard calculation. They bet they could starve Britain into surrender in just 6 months, long before the pretty small and unprepared U.S. military could actually get its act together and make a difference in Europe. But still, they needed an insurance policy. They needed a distraction. And that, right there, brings us to the other side of this story. To the secret world of British intelligence and the absolutely brilliant minds working in a place known only as Room 40. Room 40 was basically the nerve center of British codebreaking. It was filled with this motley crew of academics, linguists, even playwrights. And the telegram they just intercepted was locked down with Germany's highest-level diplomatic code, number 13042. The biggest problem? They didn't have the codebook. The task looked just about impossible. Now, to really appreciate their challenge, you have to understand the difference between a cipher and a code. A simple cipher just swaps letters. It's breakable with some work. But the Germans were using a code. That meant each whole word was replaced by a number from a massive secret dictionary. So the number 1310 could mean gun. Sure, but it could just as easily mean stop or tomorrow. Without the codebook, you're totally lost.
So how did they even have a chance? Well, it came down to years of painstaking, tedious work. Imagine putting together a 1,000,000-piece puzzle without the picture on the box. They'd intercept a message, then get a spy report about a real-world event, like a German ship leaving port at a specific time. They'd find the coded message sent around that time and make an educated guess. Okay, maybe this number means ship, and this one means sail. It was this slow, painful process of rebuilding the German codebook, one single word at a time. The job of tackling this specific telegram fell to one of Room 40's best and brightest, a young lieutenant commander named Nigel de Grey. Armed with his team's partially rebuilt codebook, he got to work, with absolutely no idea that he was about to make the discovery of a lifetime. So de Grey starts chipping away. The first word he deciphers is a name, Zimmermann, the German foreign secretary. Okay, so this is coming from the very top. Then a confirmation of their plan, unrestricted U-boat warfare. Next, Germany's greatest fear pops out, outbreak of war with the USA. You can just imagine his heart starting to race now. And then, the dynamite. The solution to keep America busy? An understanding with Mexico. The sheer audacity of this plan was just stunning.
Germany was proposing a formal military alliance. They would give Mexico money and weapons to invade the United States and reclaim its lost territories. We're talking Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. A war on American soil bankrolled by Germany. De Grey must have thought he'd just won the war. He runs to his boss, Admiral Hall, but Hall immediately sees a massive, massive problem. They had the ultimate tool to drag America into the fight, but using it could mean losing their most valuable intelligence secret forever. I mean, this is the classic Spies dilemma, right? If you show the Americans the telegram, the Germans will instantly know their top secret code has been broken. They'll change all their codes overnight and room 40 goes blind. So how do you use the information without giving away the source? Admiral Hall came up with an absolutely brilliant plan. He noticed that the telegram was being retransmitted from Washington onto Mexico City. He gambled that the second version would be slightly different, maybe use a less secure code. So he sends an agent, a mysterious guy known only as Mr. H, to bribe a clerk and steal a physical copy in Mexico. And that gave them the perfect cover story. They could claim they hadn't decoded a secret message at all. A spy had simply stolen it. With their cover story firmly in place, they gave the telegram to the Americans, and the entire world was about to see the fallout. On March 1st, 1917, the full text of the telegram hits the front pages of American newspapers. And the reaction was exactly what Britain had hoped for. The country exploded in outrage. The idea of a German-funded invasion from the south, that wasn't some distant problem in Europe. This was a direct threat to American homes. But it almost backfired. A lot of Americans, especially the ones who desperately wanted to stay out of the war, were deeply skeptical. They were sure it was a fake, a clever British trick, just to manipulate them into the conflict. And that doubt was powerful. It might have even won out, if not for one man. Arthur Zimmermann, the actual author of the telegram. In what has to be one of the greatest blunders in diplomatic history, a reporter asks him if the story is true, and he stands up and admits it, the whole thing. He tried to justify it, saying the plan was only a backup, but the damage was done. His confirmation completely killed all doubt and unified American public opinion overnight. Zimmermann's confession, triggered by the leak of his own secret message, didn't just seal his country's fate, it heralded the arrival of a new world power on the stage. After that, the dominoes just fell with incredible speed. On March 1st, the papers published the story. Just 2 days later, Zimmermann confirms it. About a month later, on April 2nd, President Wilson, the man who won on the slogan, "He kept us out of war," stood before Congress and asked for a declaration of war. By April 6th, it was official. The United States was in the First World War. The irony is just incredible when you think about it. In their desperate attempt to distract America with a war on its own border, Germany's plan ensured that the full industrial and military might of the United States would come crashing down on them in Europe. It was one of the single greatest intelligence victories in history, which really leaves us with one final haunting thought. What if that jumble of numbers had been just a little too hard to solve? What if the code was never broken?